Of sunshine across Scotland, Northern Ireland, England and Wales. I think the morning will be the sunniest time for Friday across Northern Ireland and some western fringes of the UK, but otherwise actually temperatures rising quickly through the morning because of the sunshine, and that sunshine sticking around for the bulk of Britain at least into the afternoon. Some changes are starting to take place across Northern Ireland, cloud thickening around lunchtime, outbreaks of rain reaching the far west by the middle of the afternoon. 19 Celsius in Belfast, 20 in London. A fresher feel compared with recent days for many, but not quite as chilly down that east coast compared with Thursday. Then a significant change for the bank holiday weekend. We've got a spell of rain moving through, followed by showers. It's not going to be raining everywhere all the time this bank holiday weekend, but certainly a big difference compared with spring so far, and a knock-on effect on the temperatures. But of course, we do need the rain.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Someone is going to win the biggest prize package to date, and that someone could be you, driving away in this Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It has plenty of room for your family of four, comes complete with kitchen, bathroom and all the space you'll need for life on the road. Plus, we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
A very, very good evening to you and welcome to GBN Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Earlier on today, GB News spoke to the man in charge of the government's new prison reforms.
Prisons will still remain a huge part of our structure of our criminal justice system, but if you have more effective measures in the community, you will rehabilitate more offenders. That reduces reoffending, that reduces crime, and you will have fewer victims.
Are Labour talking tough on crime while actually being soft on criminals? And here's the point. Is this just a backdoor way for Labour to look tough while dumping sex offenders out of jail and into your communities? And also in tonight's show, I'll be speaking to the former Home Secretary, James Cleverly, who is upset that Labour are taking credit for halving net migration today when he claims it's him who should be getting all of the credit. Plus, GB News spoke exclusively with the grooming gang's victim who wasn't even told that her rapist was released early from prison. Another incredible exclusive from our man Charlie Peters. Welcome to the show on a huge day in British politics. The Chagos Islands deal was done. Immigration figures are out. Is it enough? Who should take the credit? And chemical castration is on the menu, if you like, from the Labour Party talking tough on crime. They want to make it mandatory. How is that even possible? I'm joined in the studio by Anne Widdecombe, who thinks this is a legal nightmare waiting to happen. Action-packed show. Please get in touch the usual ways. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do it. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. Good evening to you. Our headlines. The Prime Minister has defended the deal he signed earlier, which has handed over control of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, saying there was no alternative and that the deal is vital to the UK's national security. The UK will lease back a military base on the island of Diego Garcia, which the United States also uses, at an average cost of £101 million per year. The government says agreeing the deal was the only way to prevent other nations from setting up military bases there. The government was allowed to conclude negotiations after the rejection of an early morning injunction, leading to protests outside the High Court from those who wanted to block the deal. Critics say it's too expensive and Mauritius will not be able to adequately protect the military base, given the country's close relationship with China. It resulted in a fiery exchange in the Commons between the Defence Secretary John Healey and his shadow counterpart, James Cartledge.
Anyone who would abandon this deal would abandon the base. They would weaken the security of the British people and they would weaken the strength of the British Armed Forces. With this deal, we've made Britain more secure at home and stronger abroad.
James Cartledge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was beneath contempt for the Prime Minister in his press conference to state that those who oppose this deal are on the side of Russia and China. Voting against this deal does not make us traitors to this country. It makes us patriots.
Teachers and doctors in England will get a 4% pay rise above the current 3.5% inflation rate after the latest public sector review. Other NHS staff, including nurses and midwives, will get 3.6%. The armed forces are set for a 4.5% uplift. The British Medical Association says the offer delays pay restoration even more and has warned of possible strikes. An extra £615 million will go to schools to help fund the rises, but they will need to cover the rest through what ministers call smarter spending. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Sir Keir Starmer is on the wrong side of humanity after he called for an end to the war in Gaza. Netanyahu specifically linked the comments to the fatal shooting of 2 Israeli embassy staffers in Washington, D.C. last night. He attacked the leaders of the UK, but also France and Canada, for criticising Israel's approach in Gaza. The young couple who died, soon to be engaged, were shot outside a humanitarian event, with the suspect reportedly shouting "Free Palestine." Police say 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez has confessed. Authorities believe he acted alone. World leaders have condemned the killings. The Foreign Secretary David Lammy has called it an appalling anti-Semitic crime. Finally, the Princess of Wales has officially named the Royal Navy's newest warship at a ceremony in Scotland.
I have the pleasure to name this ship HMS Glasgow. May God bless her and all who sail on her.
Well, Princess Kate delivered the time-honoured words before pressing a button which smashed a bottle of scotch against the hull of HMS Glasgow, the first of 8 frigates to be built there on the River Clyde, designed to provide protection for the UK's nuclear deterrent. The ceremonial act is said to bring good luck and fortune to the vessel and its crew. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more at 8.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Dordman. Now, killers and rapists could be let out of jail as soon as 1/3 through their sentences under the biggest shake-up of sentencing laws in over 30 years. Now, the new proposals mean that serious offenders, including those convicted of rape, manslaughter and attempted murder, could be released early. Short sentences under 12 months will also be scrapped, with thousands of offenders serving their time in the community, your community, instead. And in one of the most controversial moves of all, the government, the Labour Party, is expanding the use of chemical castration for sex offenders, and that includes paedophiles. Well, earlier today, our political editor Chris Hope spoke to the former Justice Secretary and the author of the new sentencing review, and that is, of course, David Gork.
David Gork, thank you for joining us on GB News. The central idea here is earned progression, so criminals can't be released automatically at a stage, but they earn the right to be released early.
That's right. I think we should set out the context, which is that our prisons are full. They are forecast, or they were forecast to reach capacity in November for the adult male estates. That's now been put back to the spring because of some action the government took. But we are still forecast to run out in the spring, and by the time we get to early 2028, the number of prisoners is going to exceed capacity by something like 9,500. So action does need to be taken. The key measure here is, as you say, earned progression, and what we're saying there is that rather than prisoners who are currently being released 40% of the way through the sentence, they should be released 1/3 of the way through their sentence if they have behaved, stuck by the rules. Then they move to the second stage, which is in the community, but under close supervision. So we would be using, for example, electronic tags, curfews, maybe full home detention, and then a final third where prisoners will be on, well, offenders will be on licence. They're in the community. If they re-offend again, they can go back to prison, but a lighter touch because they're less risk there. We think that will improve behaviour within prisons. It will help offenders prepare for moving back into the community, and we think with that intensive supervision stage in the middle, that will help protect society.
How will victims feel? I mean, they want to see criminals punished for doing crime to them, and you're saying release them after 1/3 of their sentence.
I think one thing that we should certainly do is be more transparent with everybody, but especially victims. I think they do feel a frustration where they hear one number and then people are released earlier. I think we need to be explicit at the point of sentencing in terms of explaining sentences, precisely what is happening. So I think we need to be honest and transparent with the public on this. But the wider point here is that I think what most victims want is to ensure that there is less crime in future, that there will be fewer victims in future, that what has happened to them does not happen to other people.
So your plan will cut crime?
Well, I believe, and the evidence supports this, that if you have effective measures taken in the community, combined with prisons will still remain a huge part of our structure of our criminal justice system, but if you have more effective measures in the community, you will rehabilitate more offenders. That reduces reoffending, that reduces crime, and you will have fewer victims.
Have you ever been a victim of crime personally?
Yeah, I've been burgled.
How would you feel if the burglar did?
Look, I think anybody who has been a victim of crime feels, very angry, upset, wants action to be taken. I completely empathise with anybody in that situation. I've experienced it myself. But what we have to do is, first of all, recognise the realities about the prison numbers, and second, come up with a system that is really effective in terms of stopping that criminal behaviour happening again. And at the moment, yes, we throw a lot of people in prison, and we throw a lot of people in prison for quite a long time compared to almost every other Western European country. but are we as effective as we might be in terms of stopping people offending again, sorting out whatever is driving that reoffending and addressing those problems? And I think we can do better on that.
How would you feel, though, with an early release paedophile living on your street, for example?
Well, look, I understand that these issues are a concern. Again, we have to remember that most offenders, most prisoners are going to be released at some point. And I think most people would be more reassured if we've got effective measures in place, if we're making use of new technology, if we've got a really effective tagging regime. That is likely to be more reassuring than a position where we put people in prison and then they're just dumped out on society and nothing is done to address the underlying issue.
Is all this an interim measure before those new prisons are built, the new cell space is found? 9,500 more cells needed by 2028 is a lot.
Yes, it is a great deal, but that is the scale of the problem that we have. And look, the government is spending a lot of money on building new prisons, but there comes a question as to, in my view, how far you can keep going building more and more prisons. It's worth bearing in mind, Chris, a couple of statistics. In 1993, the prison population in England and Wales was 44,000. Today it is 88,000. Yes. Also worth bearing in mind, if you look at the incarceration rate, i.e. how many people are in prison per 100,000, in the Netherlands it's 64, in Germany it's 68, in England and Wales it's 139. Now I don't believe... Twice as there. Now I don't believe that the people of England and Wales are twice as bad as the people of the Netherlands and Germany when it comes to committing crimes.
Perhaps we're more in tune with what victims want, David Gorg.
Well, maybe that's right, but I tell you, it's not as effective as it might be in reducing reoffending, and it's also
reoffending worse in this country compared to other countries.
I think yeah, we're certainly not the best. You can point to countries with much better reoffending rates, with lower prison populations. And by the way, the hard-pressed taxpayer, who is under a lot of pressure at the moment, it costs for every single prison place, on average, £54,000 a year. Now, use that money in the community, there's an awful lot that you can do, whether that's about tagging and what have you. There's more technology coming on that can assist us in all of this. I think from the point of view of the taxpayer, I'm not sure the taxpayer is getting a good deal from our criminal justice system at the moment either.
There's also a recommendation to allow the chemical castration of paedophiles. Is that your idea?
Well, our recommendation is much more limited.
Yes.
What we say is we say you should look at chemical suppressants that for some sex offenders, not all, it could be useful in terms of reducing their sexual desires. And if that is the case, we should look at the evidence of that, build that evidence up.
But the government's saying today that it wants to force people to be castrated. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, the government's looking to go further than we are proposing. We recommend voluntary and building up the evidence base. So, as I say, the government wants to go further.
And just finally, a personal question to you. Have you rejoined the Conservative Party?
Chris, I'm a member of the Conservative Party.
Okay, good.
I even voted Conservative in the local elections
so you've been on a
few
journey.
Weeks ago, and not many people can say that.
And you yourself, of course, have been on quite a journey with your politics. Why are you now helping out the Labour Party? Do you want to improve the outcomes from our criminal justice system?
Whoever is in power, we have got a problem. If the Conservatives had won the last election, they would have been faced with that problem. Yeah, and I just want to help solve a problem.
David Gorg, on the day that your sentencing review is released, thank you for joining us on GB News.
Pleasure to be with you.
And that was David Gorg there with our political editor Chris Hope. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio now by the former Prisons Minister, Anne Widdecombe. And always a pleasure to have your company. You listened patiently there to Mr. Gorg. Are you convinced that this is the correct plan, a plan that's going to put victims finally first?
Not remotely, because what is driving this plan? It isn't a feeling that we ought to look at the justice system, and review it. It isn't that at all. It isn't that we think the victim's getting a bad deal and we ought to review that. No, it's that there aren't enough prison places, and that is what is driving all of this. And when a sentence comes down to a third, and it could be for quite a serious offence, we've heard that, when the sentence comes down to a third, that is solely in order to free up prison space. Now, that is completely the wrong way round. I had exactly this problem. Now, you heard there that the prison population in 1993 was 40,000. I came in to the prisons job in 1995. It went up in my time to 60,000. And I didn't let them all out. I brought in a prison ship from the United States. I took disused porta cabins from Norwegian oil rigs, put them down in the medium security prisons. I was about to, but the general election frustrated me, I was about to take over a holiday camp, because if you think of it, you've got all the accommodation there. You do take out the swimming pool and the cinema, but you've got all the accommodation there. All you need, you put a secure a perimeter around it, and then you've got a low security prison. Where's the problem?
Well, the problem now would be that would probably contravene the human rights of prisoners. Put them in containers, it would be treated as if it were some kind of containment camp. That would never be allowed. One point that you're picking up there, when Mr. Gork said, "I doubt that Britons are twice as likely to be criminals as Scandinavians." I wonder if that's true.
I mean, if you actually look at Scandinavia, and I took a very close look at the Norwegian prison system not very long ago for the purposes of a documentary. I mean, first of all, their population is a fraction of ours, of course. And secondly, the recidivism rate is so low precisely because there's such a low population. So there's no comparison there. And I do actually think that in terms of guns and knives and drugs, Britain is probably more violent than those countries are.
Yeah, and also the real controversial point today was this notion of mandatory chemical castration. This is something that's often been linked, if you like, to quite extreme politics. Doesn't feel like the Labour Party at all. In practice, you have grave concerns this could even work.
Well, exactly. First of all, as we've heard, it's not guaranteed to work. That's the first thing. So you could actually release a paedophile into the community and say, "Oh, it's all right, he's been castrated," and it doesn't work. And so, I mean, that is the first danger. The second danger is simply that what you're going to do is you're going to create an awful lot of work for an awful lot of lawyers. Because the idea that the state can forcibly make you go through a process of taking drugs, it can actually make you do that, strap you down if you resist or whatever it is they're going to do. Really, if that is where the way the state is going, then it's just going to be one long legal hassle. Frankly, I think Starmer's gone mad. I mean, I've thought that for a long time.
Anne Widdecombe, as a former prisons minister yourself, do you think this plan from a former Conservative Justice Minister aiding and abetting a present-day Minister, Shabana Mahmood, will it make Britain's streets safer for Britons, yes or no?
No.
Why not?
Absolutely no. As I say, it's driven by the need to free up prison spaces. It's not driven by what is going to make things safer. The big deal for me has always been what you do with people when you've got them in prison. That is the crucial thing. If you don't have proper training, proper workshops, proper education, offending behaviour courses like temper management, for example, if you don't have those things, then the chances are that the chap who leaves the prison gate is as bad and maybe possibly worse than the chap who entered the prison gates. That creates more victims. That creates more court costs. And when people say to me, "Oh, it's very liberal to talk about rehabilitation," I say, no, it ain't. It's actually a crucial tool of public protection. And when will anybody wake up to that?
And that's what they do in Texas, and perhaps we should be taking a leaf out of their book. Anne Widdecombe, fantastic as ever. Please stick with us, because next, net migration has halved compared to the previous year. But is it really that much of a victory when nearly 500,000 net people entered in a single year? That's right, it's basically the size of Bristol in 1 year. Well, next, I'll be speaking to the former Home Secretary, James Cleverly, who says that he should be getting all the credit for today's numbers. That's next.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, We love it all. Even the rain. We like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Amy, how did you get into this beauty stuff?
It's a good story, actually. I moved here years ago. I married a lovely Scotsman, and I was acting for a while, and then I was producing. And while I was producing, I needed a part-time job, and I got a job presenting beauty products at QVC, the shopping channel. And I was given a hair removal device. And although we did millions of pounds of sellout shows, they were oftentimes returned. Not due to my bad selling, but simply because they didn't work or people didn't like the smell of burning hair. And I thought to myself, people want a dermaplaner. They don't want this 250-pound device. So at the time, I was bringing over these dermaplaners from America to the UK because I couldn't find them in store. And then I thought to myself, light bulb moment, let me start manufacturing them because I truly believe everyone needs a dermaplaner in their routine.
A dermaplaner, that's the future.
Dermaplaner.
But you're from America, the US.
Yes, I'm from New York originally.
And, don't like to bring this up, Amy, but somebody tells me, I think it's James, our producer, that you were a career criminal back in the day. Is this true? Let's just put this to bed.
Okay, it's semi-true. Career criminal.
Semi-true.
Semi-true. Okay. I did get issued a summons.
Okay.
I was a bartender briefly. And I had to do community service for a day. I was issued a summons because there was a sting operation at a bar that I was working in as a bartender. And I served someone underage. The legal drinking age is 21.
21, yeah.
And it was super busy. I didn't look for his license. Next thing I know, I saw a cop flashing his badge. And I thought, oh my God, don't you have criminals to arrest, not me?
Proper criminals. But
Proper criminals.
We believe in second chances here on GB News, especially on this channel. This is why we've got you behind the bar, even though you've got a dodgy past. You put that to bed, haven't you?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Now, has Sir Keir Starmer been thrown a lifeline on the issue of immigration? Well, today, figures from the Office for National Statistics have revealed that net migration fell by almost half, in fact, to 431,000 in the year to December 2024, and that's down from a stratospheric 860,000 the year before. However, the former Conservative Home Secretary, James Cleverly, claimed that this drop in numbers is owing to the changes that he put in place in office at the time. Well, I'm very pleased to say I'm joined now by the man himself, James Cleverly, the MP for Braintree and the former Home Secretary. Mr. Cleverly, a pleasure to have your company. So can you explain to us why you think Sir Keir Starmer should be sending you a box of chocolates and a thank you note today?
Well, I find it pretty galling that he's been taking credit for this reduction in migration numbers. He's been all over social media, and Labour MPs have been saying, look what we achieved in our first year in government, forgetting that the figures that were released today cover the last calendar year, half of which they weren't even in government. And actually, that reduction, and the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, says so, is primarily due to the changes in the visa rules that I put in place, reducing the number of dependents that students and workers can bring with them from overseas and increasing the salary threshold. I didn't do it on my own. I had a good ministerial team. I had the full backing of the Prime Minister. But the idea that Keir Starmer is taking credit for the difficult decisions that we made and that he opposed at the time, I think is a bit rich.
James Cleverly, between 2010 and 2024, 5.15 million net came to the UK. That's 5 Birminghams. 1 in 25 people in the UK came in the past 4 years. Post-2020, when the Conservatives were in power, 2.65 million came to the UK. The numbers are down because they were stratospheric under your government. What do you say to people that claiming credit for today's downturn is a bit like somebody who started a fire claiming credit for putting it out?
Well, when I was appointed as Home Secretary, Rishi Sunak said that he wanted me to bring those immigration figures down. And actually, you've covered the whole time we're in government, but the really sharp increase was in the couple of years leading up to the general election. And there were a number of issues that drove those figures, including the Ukrainian refugees that we took into the UK, including the Hong Kong Chinese that we took into the UK, and of course the really distorting effect that we had after COVID, where a lot of foreign workers left. So you're only talking about the people, your figures are about the people coming in, but a lot of people left during that COVID era, which put real pressure on health and social care. So we had to recruit quickly. But the simple truth of the matter is that those figures were much, much, much too high. I recognised that. Rishi recognised that. He gave me the authority to make the changes that have now reduced that figure by 50%. That's a big reduction. It's going to keep coming down because of the visa regime we put in place. But the Labour government decided not to implement another tightening measure that was scheduled to come into force this spring. So they talk tough, but in practice, they are not doing any of the difficult things, even when we hand them to them on a plate.
James Cleverly, could I draw to your attention what I thought was an astonishing clip earlier on today? Of course, the announcement of this historic Chagos deal. The Prime Minister compared Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage to the enemies of Great Britain. Let's play that clip now.
Against it, Russia, China, Iran. And surprisingly, the leader of the opposition and Nigel Farage are in that column alongside Russia, China and Iran, rather than the column that has the UK and its allies in it.
James Cleverly, a lot of people think of that was an astonishingly shabby way to attack Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage. What did you make of that?
Oh, it really is below him. Now, obviously, Kemi is a colleague and friend. I know Nigel well. We disagree on many things. But to suggest that he somehow, and that we are on the side of Putin or Beijing is really quite disgusting. Bearing in mind that the legal precedent that he is claiming that he has to follow, and he says, oh, we have to do this because of legal pressure, which is nonsense. But the judge that gave that opinion, the deputy judge that gave that opinion at the International Court of Justice was a Chinese judge. The Russians have voted at the UN to say the UK should give up sovereignty to Mauritius. These are the things that we are opposing. So to suggest that Kemi, that my party, that Nigel are somehow siding with our competitors and enemies is really, really deeply inappropriate. And it seems that Keir Starmer's got a bit of a habit. Whenever he's under pressure, whenever he's struggling to justify his actions, whether it's stripping winter fuel payments off of pensioners or giving away UK sovereign territory, he turns into this rather nasty, vindictive character who, whether he was rude to Liz Savile-Roberts in the chamber or making these baseless accusations at the press conference, it's a really bad trait, and he does it when he knows he's on the wrong side of the argument. So your viewers should watch out, because when he behaves like that, it's because he knows he's in the wrong.
OK, James Cleverly, thank you very, very much for joining us on tonight's show. A pleasure to have your company. Thank you. Let's get straight back to the studio now, because listening in was the former Prisons Minister, Anne Widdecombe. And first of all, on immigration, do you think it's somewhat ironic or galling that that the Conservatives are taking credit today?
Well, I think it's hilarious. I mean, when you consider the sheer numbers, which you yourself rehearsed, which came in during the Conservative years, they obviously made no impact at all on the reduction in immigration. Now, it is quite true that their changes in the visa rules have contributed to this downward turn, for which Keir Starmer is taking credit. But I think anybody listening to this is going to be now shouting at the screen, you know, I don't care which of you is responsible, just get immigration down to a manageable level. And that is what the nation wants. It doesn't care who did what. All it knows is what you've described as 5 Birminghams have come in. And, of course, we're now here talking about lawful immigration through the visa system. Yes. You know, what's happening with the boats is even worse.
And do you think that people's discontent with the entire body politic is such now they simply don't trust anybody to get this job done?
Well, I don't blame them because, you know, both the Conservatives and the Labour government have promised that they were going to get on top of it. It go right back to Cameron. He was even promising numbers, you know, to get it down to 100,000.
The tens of thousands.
Neither of them have delivered. So I'm not surprised that people are saying the two main parties have failed. You know, let's give somebody else a chance, particularly a party that has been talking about this for a very long time.
And then we can briefly, if we could, what do you make of Sir Keir Starmer today comparing Nigel Farage to Putin or the Iranian Ayatollahs?
Well, it's disgusting, but I think it speaks for itself. I don't think the nation will be impressed by that any more than they're impressed by Starmer.
It was truly a moment, and, you know, it was a piece of historic sovereign territory giveaway, and many people felt it was incredible to turn this onto his political opponents.
Well, I agree, and the crucial thing is that the Chagos deal should not be going through, that we are saying, we're going to give you something back, and by the way, we're going to pay you for the privilege of doing so. And I mean, dash it, it's a US base, you know, and we're paying. The whole thing is ridiculous. I don't know what Starmer's logic is. In fact, I think there is no logic there at all. And yes, I think it's rather a pity that we've now got so distracted by the ruderies about Nigel that we actually aren't focusing on the real issue, which is the iniquities of the Chagos deal.
And Widdicombe, always an absolute joy to have in the studio. Thank you very, very much for joining us tonight on GBN Tonight. Thank you. And also thank you to Mr. Cleverly. Now, coming up next, another GB News rape gang exclusive that is sure to make your blood boil. As it's revealed, a prolific rapist was let out of prison without even informing the victim. That's next on the Charlie Peters exclusive.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We're going to see skies clear widely overnight, and that will lead to a chilly night for many of us. A late season frost, gardeners beware, but plenty more sunshine to come during Friday. We've still got high pressure in charge only for another 36 hours or so. A cold front has sunk south through the day, and that's leaving a legacy of patchy cloud, which eventually fizzles away during the hours of darkness. 1 or 2 showers for the far north of Scotland, perhaps the odd one running down North Sea coast. But otherwise it's clear skies, and with cool air in place now, a widespread chilly night with temperatures into the low single figures, and in some spots even below freezing. So yeah, if you've got tender plants outside, beware of that. There will be a late season frost, certainly a chillier feel Friday morning compared with recent mornings, but plenty of sunshine across Scotland, Northern Ireland, England and Wales. I think the morning will be the sunniest time for Friday across Northern Ireland and some western fringes of the UK, but otherwise actually temperatures rising quickly through the morning because of the sunshine, and that sunshine sticking around for the bulk of Britain at least into the afternoon. Some changes are starting to take place across Northern Ireland, cloud thickening around lunchtime, outbreaks of rain reaching the far west by the middle of the afternoon. 19 Celsius in Belfast, 20 in London. A fresher feel compared with recent days for many, but not quite as chilly down that east coast compared with Thursday. Then a significant change for the bank holiday weekend. We've got a spell of rain moving through, followed by showers. It's not going to be raining everywhere all the time this bank holiday weekend, but certainly a big difference compared with spring so far, and a knock-on effect on the temperatures. But of course, we do need the rain.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. A grooming gang survivor found out that her rapist had been released after seeing a social media post of him being charged with new offences. GB News can exclusively reveal. The abuser, who we are not naming for legal reasons, was released from prison several years ago, but victim liaison services failed to contact one of his victims after he was released and charged once again. Now, the voice in this package has been distorted for anonymity reasons, and our national reporter Charlie Peters has this exclusive report.
So what are your current concerns about victim liaison and you being informed of perpetrators of your abuse when they be released from prison?
So 2 people have so far been released from prison, and I was informed of one of them getting released but not of another. I wasn't told about either of them until I'd already seen it on Facebook, and then the liaison officers got in touch with me at a later date to confirm it. They need to start looking at it a case-by-case basis, looking at criminal history and the risk of reoffending, because these people have repeatedly offended their whole lives and they're still getting let out after sentencing.
How did you find out in the most recent case that one of your perpetrators from this grooming gang, this abuse gang, had been charged with another offence?
I opened my Facebook and saw it on the police's website announcing his charges.
And when you spoke to your victim liaison officer, did they apologise?
He said all he could do was apologise that I'd found out that way, and he had sent a letter to me that I'd be with me in the next few days for a victim impact statement.
Now, you've moved around for your own safety since your successful convictions of these perpetrators many years ago. When you moved most recently, several years ago, you said that they'd closed down your victim liaison claim.
Yes, so I informed them I was moving, and they said they'd do a transfer of care to the local authority of where I was moving to. Instead of doing that, they closed the case down. After a certain amount of time, I realised I'd had no contact, and that was a bit suspicious because I probably should have done. So a few weeks ago, I started ringing around, and then that's when I was informed that the second person had already been released. And then by the time I spent a week trying to ring the victim liaison officer, and by the time I got through, I'd already found out he'd been charged with another offence and been recalled back to prison.
Do you think that the police and the probation services and the government more generally take the safety of survivors seriously enough?
No, so in the beginning, they were released on bail, even though some of them failed to attend bail. The one that failed to attend got remanded in prison. Then he later got released again on bail to pending a court date.
So, as it stands, you have no confidence that the victim liaison system works and that you'll be informed properly when perpetrators are released. That could put you at risk.
Yeah, especially like the most recent one that he's been charged with it's a severe crime. It's a very violent crime, so that just shows how much danger I could have been in without even knowing that I was in danger, because I didn't even know he wasn't in prison.
Another incredible excuse there from our man Charlie Peters, and I'm joined now by a solicitor who has represented more than 100 child abuse survivors, David Greenwood. And David, I know you've worked with Robbie Moore, the Tory MP for Keighley and Ilkley, about the astonishing 72,000 children that have been at risk of sexual abuse. And once again here, Mr Greenwood, there seems to be a system where the victim is at the back of the queue.
Well, firstly, I think we need to remember, although you are featuring these so-called grooming gangs, we need to remember that this only accounts for 7% of child sexual abuse that is occurring or is recorded in this country. It's great that you are featuring it, but it is only a tiny minority. But you're right, I really don't think that police forces around the country have got to grips, and councils have got to grips with how to respond to this as yet. The independent inquiry into child sexual abuse held an inquiry, a statutory inquiry, into this so-called organised exploitation of children, and made some recommendations which have not yet been implemented by the government. I'm working with a group which is trying to make sure that the government brings in those recommendations so that the police can be ahead of these exploiters, these abusers, rather than behind the curve.
And David, you presented a dossier of your findings to the Home Office. Do you think they're going to listen? Do you think there'll be any changes made, or is it a system that's completely faulty and a system that seems to be in complete denial?
Possibly. The point of me working with Robbie Moore was to highlight the fact that we believe that a lot of exploitation has been going on in the Bradford district, which hasn't been looked into, hasn't been examined properly. We don't know the extent of it. We don't know who's doing it. We don't know whether local authorities and police have responded well or badly. We don't know what the NHS have done about all this. We really need to know facts. We've been fobbed off by the local authority numerous times when we've requested this type of Alexis J style Rotherham inquiry. And it seems to me as though the local authority in Bradford, at least, I can't speak for other local authorities, is trying to avoid this because it's inevitably going to give it a bad reputation, and it's going to harm its reputation. And this is part of the problem. We spoke to a minister, Robbie and I, and pointed out that it's all well and good announcing that there will be a number of inquiries, a number of local inquiries, but we need to find a mechanism of making sure that local authorities do actually carry out those inquiries.
Okay.
So we're advocating for the government to make sure that these local authorities actually do it, they're properly funded, and some pressure is put on them to take part.
Thank you very much, David Green, for joining us tonight, and thank you for the work you do to continue to shine a light on this topic. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, a Ministry of Justice spokesperson told GB News this was a horrific crime and our thoughts remain with his victim. Victims must feel safe, which is why offenders released on licence must follow strict conditions, such as curfews and exclusion zones, to prevent them approaching their victims. They face going back to prison if they break the rules. Now, coming up next, the government has pledged it's suddenly found almost £7 billion in pay rises for the public sector, despite warnings that this could lead to tax rises later this year, and doctors are still threatening to strike, despite this inflation-busting bumper payout. Is this the right move? I'll debate that next.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Unsettled across the south and southeast of Europe, some ongoing heavy thundery showers, but otherwise elsewhere it's mostly fine, particularly across Madeira and Tenerife. Most of Portugal seeing plenty of sunshine. Across the southeast of Spain, though, more cloud, potentially some showers here, but it's really across northern parts of Italy, anywhere across the Adriatic coastline that could see these heavy, possibly thundery showers. Greece should be mostly settled, and elsewhere from Sunday there's still plenty of sunshine and temperatures widely in the mid to low 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and he did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Now, Sir Keir Starmer has suddenly magicked up a £6.9 billion wave of inflation-busting public sector pay rises, fuelling yet more fears that Brits could soon be hit with fresh tax hikes to fund them. Now, junior doctors are in line for a bumper pay boost of up to 6%, dwarfing the 3.6% handed to other NHS staff, but they're still threatening even more strikes. Now, from soldiers to teachers, millions will see inflation-busting pay hikes paid for by private sector employees. Let's have a ding-dong. And I'm joined now by the political commentator Andy Twelves and the journalist and the author Ross Clark. Andy Twelves, I'm going to start with you. Why on earth are we funding yet more public sector pay rises when we can't even keep pensioners warm? This now, to my reckoning, is 17 billion quid and rising.
Well, I think it's worth noting, you know, the trade unions have actively campaigned against the winter fuel cuts. They've
campaigned against the PIP cuts. They've campaigned against all these cuts that you've mentioned. So I don't think it really should be one or the other. I think everybody should be paid fairly. Everybody should be looked after. And I don't really, see it as, their snouts in the trough, as some people have put it. Still, this is, just above inflation pay rise. But if you put it in the context of the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, they're still below the rate of inflation in terms. So they've had a real-term pay cut over the last 15, 20 years. So, it's progress, but there's still a long way to go.
Andy, mate, the point of giving billions of pounds out in pay rises is so it stops the strikes. It's not even doing that.
Well, I mean, nobody wants to go on strike. It's, strikes aren't just about pay. Strikes are often about conditions. They're about shift patterns. They're about the way that people work. It's not always about pay.
OK, let's bring in Ross Clark. Ross Clark seems like a one-way gravy train where the public sector are winning.
Yeah, well, let's look at the background to this. This morning we had the public borrowing figures for April, which showed that the government had to borrow £20 billion in that month alone. In the past year, it's had to borrow £150 billion. That is the gap between revenue and expenditure. The country is going bust, and yet it's quite obvious that the public finances are in such a state that the tax rises that we had in April, they produce an extra £5.6 billion in April, but the government spent an extra £6.6 billion. The government is losing control of public finances. The country is going to go bust, and when it does, then we are going to have real serious cuts to public spending. We're going to have mass job losses, and that is where the unions are going to take us. I mean, at the moment, why are we having these above inflation pay rises? Because Labour is in hock to the unions, and it's always been in hock to the unions. And Rachel Reeves said all she liked about being fiscal responsibility, but when she got into office, as soon as she got into office, she started handing out these.
OK, Ross, let's get Andy 12s back in here. Isn't that a fair point, though, Andy? We keep hearing banging on about a £22 billion black hole, just being made £17 billion bigger.
Well, I mean, yeah, after 15 years of Tory austerity, I mean, what was it, $2 billion?
Yeah, but taxpayers
sent to their friends on the PPE.
The difference is, Andy, taxpayers are paying us mugs.
Well, what about the $2 billion of taxpayers' money that went on scammed PPE contracts? That's taxpayers' money.
Well, that was also ridiculous.
I mean, the idea that the unions are in ad hoc to the Labour Party. I mean, the teachers' unions aren't affiliated, the BMA isn't affiliated, the nursing union isn't affiliated. They don't give money to the Labour Party.
Lots of unions do.
Well, a lot of unions do.
Directly to Keir Starmer's coffers.
I mean, often, yes, but I mean, to suggest that Rachel Reeves is listening to the unions, I mean, God forbid the unions are actually in control. I think the country would look significantly better. The reason that people are getting above inflation pay rises is because of 15 years of Tory austerity. Those policies have disproportionately affected working class people, and it's time that they get a decent pay rise.
And do you think, Ross Clark, that the public are just going to mop this up? They're going to sit by and see the choices? This is choices. The choices is to give 17 billion quid to public sector pays while taking 1.5 billion quid from winter pensioners.
Yeah, the winter pay, the winter fuel allowance. I agree that should be cut as well. The triple lock has got to go. There's a whole range of public spending cuts which need to be made.
The entire British electorate disagrees with you, apart from the Constitutional Labour Party. You were doing quite well there, Ross. And you suddenly think we should be cutting pensioners.
Well, we need to get public spending in line with revenue, because if we don't, no British government, we keep hearing these, terms Tory austerity, but no UK government in the past 22 years has balanced the books. Every year we've been building up debt year on year, and we've got to the stage where just servicing that debt is now costing the government over £100 billion a year, more than we spend on education.
Ross Clark, we have to leave it there. Listen, mate, in life it's not all about slide rules and spreadsheets, it's about humanity too. But look, what do I know? Thank you, Ross Clark. Thank you, Andy 12's great way to end the show. Now, up next, State of the Nation, a special treat for you tonight, hoving into view like a vision. Nana Aquia.
Yes, Martin Daubney, thank you very much. Look, I've got a very exciting show for you. We're going to be talking about immigration figures. It's been the big topic so far. 1 in 25 people in this country over the last 4 years have come here. I mean, can you imagine? 1 in 25, have come here in the last 4 years, which is massive. Net migration's down by half, but the question is, if it's down by half, really, why is that? And actually, why are we not focusing on the small boats? That is a big issue, and the thing that most people are very angry about, seeing as the other day 800 people came in and a flotilla of ships had to move so that a migrant ship could go through. I mean, we've got so much to talk about, plus sentencing reform and everything.
We have to leave it there. Nana Aquia's next. I've been your host today. I'm back tomorrow. I'm about to take Andy 12s for a pint, a proof we can all get on despite having different views. But first, here's your weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We're going to see skies clear widely overnight, and that will lead to a chilly night for many of us. A late season frost, gardeners beware, but plenty more sunshine to come during Friday. We've still got high pressure in charge only for another 36 hours or so. A cold front has sunk south through the day, and that's leaving a legacy of patchy cloud which eventually fizzles away during the hours of darkness. 1 or 2 showers for the far north of Scotland, perhaps the odd one running down North Sea coast, but otherwise it's clear skies, and with cool air in place now, a widespread chilly night with temperatures into the low single figures and in some spots even below freezing. So yeah, if you've got tender plants outside, beware of that. There will be a late season frost, certainly a chillier feel Friday morning compared with recent mornings, but plenty of sunshine across Scotland, Northern Ireland, England and Wales. I think the morning will be the sunniest time for Friday across Northern Ireland and some western fringes of the UK, but otherwise, actually temperatures rising quickly through the morning because of the sunshine, and that sunshine sticking around for the bulk of Britain at least into the afternoon. Some changes are starting to take place across Northern Ireland, cloud thickening around lunchtime, outbreaks of rain reaching the far west by the middle of the afternoon. 19 Celsius in Belfast, 20 in London. A fresher feel compared with recent days for many, but not quite as chilly down that east coast compared with Thursday. Then a significant change for the bank holiday weekend. We've got a spell of rain moving through, followed by showers. It's not going to be raining everywhere all the time this bank holiday weekend, but certainly a big difference compared with spring so far, and a knock-on effect on the temperatures. But of course, we do need the rain.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the